Namaste, Assalamu alaikum, Shalom, Mir, Niha, Buenos Dias, Buenos tardes, Hesice, Aquaba, Welcome, what up, though? This is a welcoming, a beginning, and an explanation, an introduction. Anyways, a story. About over 20 years ago, when I'm in law school, I work with a number of collegial brethren on a number of projects. One of these projects is to establish a broadcast network that shares multicultural content, sitcoms, dramas, news, other forms of journalism, and additionally that shares genuine experience, authentic experience from different communities, ethnically predominantly. And the purpose of that is to provide a general audience, the general community, the general society with authentic insight from and about the experience of different communities, just as a way of cultivating basic respect for each other, mutual respect, understanding, and knowledge to be able to better cooperate with each other. Amidst all the messaging about multiculturalism and kumbaya and everything else like this, just for the masses, for the cats, the common cats on the streets, and additionally, just to know some basic stuff about each other. Not through secondhand, not through propaganda, and other hysterical things, but directly from the cats who are living in the other community. So anyways, that was the purpose, that was the premise, that was the prospect over 20 years ago. And this is the day the internet was just getting started. But broadcast television was the main way of getting a message out to people. Being in law school, I'm introduced to a number of bigwigs in different media conglomerates, and additionally, and so this is something that works. The idea was eventually approaching Oprah and getting her involvement, and additionally, and having a broadcast network like amidst the big three at that time, or 3 or 4 at that time. And so the idea wasn't necessarily to be big itself, but just probably like an Univision at that point, actually. A multicultural Univision, somewhat like that, on one of those UHF stations or something like that. Anyways, what happens? Cats get lured into other lucrative endeavors, and the project is put on hiatus. I focus on increasing on other endeavors as myself, given the conditions, particularly another project that collegial brother and I work on at the time called ASONA, a think tank, a multicultural think tank. I'll say a little bit about that. The think tank was, again, another multicultural endeavor. Rather than a broadcast network per se, ASONA Ashram, ASONA at that moment, it was called ASONA Inc., is a multicultural think tank, like a policy institute, that again brings together particularly professionals, lawyers, other intellectuals, professors, and additionally to talk about the pressing concerns within the respective communities. And again, at that point, I was at Georgetown. That's where I graduated from law school, and so I'm in the nation's capital. So there's a lot of politics. It's on people's minds all the time. But then also there's a network at Georgetown, but then also there's an extended network, because many of the people at the Georgetown Law Center are graduates from other Ivy League schools, and additionally on both coasts in the Midwest, and additionally in the South too. And so there's this, and there's a multicultural. I connect with brethren from all these different ethnic communities, and so each of these brethren coming from their alumni networks and everything else, and there was that intrinsic network to like maintain the communication, have like a policy discussion, and forming that into like a journal, and additionally, so that eventually evolves into what is now ASONA Ashram, and that's where I continue working. It includes the element of religiosity and spirituality, and that's where things are at this moment. So all that being said, in terms of the broadcast network, the television station, television network, because it was Continental. Oprah eventually starts her own joint. Like I said, other brethren go and find their own endeavors. A few years later, after that, after kind of like a number of the brethren who were working on that project kind of go in different directions, there is an elder brother who is involved within another circle. Well, yeah, Al Gore, who is known during that period. He is part of a group that starts an endeavor called Current TV, and Current TV was offered as like an egalitarian, democratic kind of social media thing before social media was even a thing. People could upload videos on their accounts, and then those videos that got greenlit by the community would be shared on the coinciding cable station, cable network for the online or for the online platform. And I think there were some barriers in terms of who could actually post online. I think there was like maybe some minimum requirements because again, bandwidth was a huge concern during that period. So I remember I don't think I put too much on Current TV, perhaps because of those barriers. But it was very exciting because it was a new thing. Like we can actually, and this is like during MySpace. I wasn't too tough on MySpace, but Current TV, it was that sense of connecting with the earth. You could see posts from all around the earth. People sharing, and it was that kind of like new vibe of like that kumbaya type vibe and everything else like that. Now about maybe in the next year after that gets started, there are additional endeavors. Google Video was one, and then YouTube is another one. Again, this is about 15 years ago, and Google Video was like a small time kind of joint. Gmail was just getting started. You had to have like an invite to get onto Gmail. And this is before Facebook even, too tough. Like, I mean, Facebook was around, but it wasn't like known too tough commonly. So Google Video was on, but YouTube was increasingly popular. There wasn't too many people going Google. I had a Google account. I put stuff on Google Video. But YouTube was the one that was increasingly interactive. And YouTube was kind of like offering what Current TV was doing, but it didn't have like all the mechanics or whatever. It's just like, here it is, do what you want to do. And that was one of the things that was appealing because it offered the bandwidth. I think there was a limit of 15 minutes initially for a while, actually. I think for new accounts, again, bandwidth concerns. But anybody could open an account. There were very few barriers, and then anybody can like connect with anybody. The algorithms and everything like that had yet to get like entrenched or whatever, but you can find things, and there were like trending things before trending was even a thing. This is before Twitter and everything else like that. Before even like smartphones actually, smartphones catch on or whatever. So people were watching this on videos. This was all predominantly laptop or PC. So the thing about YouTube is that it was like, again, that culture of like immediacy, like international immediacy. You can see like just grassroots cats. Corporations hadn't been on this. People weren't commercial, it wasn't monetized, whatever. Cats were just posting because they wanted to connect, wanted to share experience. Artists were doing these things. I think Vimeo had yet to be started during that point. But this was a way of expressing and communicating. And so there were things like, there was like a campaign called Free Hugs by a guy named, his moniker was One Man. But basically his shtick was, he would go on like a public place, like a public city center or like a outside mall, whatever, and he would be blindfolded, and he would just have like a sign on him saying "Free Hugs," and he would just stand there like that, and people would go up to him and give him a hug. And this was like a few years after the 9/11 attacks, or the 9/11, the 11th of September sabotage, or however you want to describe it. So there was that feeling of like entrenched fear, anxiety, and just distrust and malaise. And so it was maybe 5-6 years after this, but still, it was still very strong within the fabric of society. So to see these things of like people just like sharing this love, and additionally, like, and there were rules that he had, like no numbers and no how, just like that, it caught on. Other additional one to people, and Oprah, he was on Oprah, so that's big things back then. So anyways, long story. It's okay though. That was the culture. That was the vibe. And it wasn't everything, because there were cats doing silly stuff and cats trying to like make a come up or whatever else. But there was a culture of just like, yo, let's we doing this thing? What's going on? What's the solution? And so, even like Wikipedia, I think Wikipedia had even get started like that. The whole notion of like, what is it? Open sourcing, and additionally, I mean, obviously there are techies that are always on that kind of vibe, but still, it had yet to kind of like get traction within the mainstream. So, the internet was still finding itself in that first decade. So that's when I started getting on YouTube, because eventually I put the videos on YouTube even with the 15-minute limitation, and then Google purchases YouTube and then discontinues Google Video, and so everything on Google Video was basically canceled, and everything was in the Google Video invited people to share their content onto YouTube, and there's a window to download, because once something was uploaded onto Google, I don't think it could be downloaded after that, but they opened it up for people to like re-download their stuff and then upload it onto YouTube. So I do that. I imagine a number of people do that. So that was my beginning with YouTube. And that was about 15 years ago. Now, I get on to Facebook additionally, and during that period, particularly for people like myself, it was even beyond just like a class reunion or anything, because after the 11th of September, that's when I graduate from law school. I leave the earth, literally, figuratively. I leave the earth. Particularly, I leave the United States. Don't talk with pretty much anybody outside of my house. This I have to be mindful, focused, stay on track. Oh, I'm supposed to be doing something else. So, haha. All right. So I leave society. I study religions, and I look for truth, because I wasn't finding it around me or even within me. How about that? In those first few years, I was in a cave. I study, and that's what I do. Very little social interaction with anybody else. Feeling betrayed, abandoned, outcast by all my peers, all my collegial brethren who are going out and getting into the rat race, getting married, having children, getting jobs, getting promoted in jobs, and additionally, and me being at the crib, at the house, studying, being locked up because I'm not cooperating and I'm not playing the game, and being angry, but also being intent on learning better. So that's what I do. Point is, for like 5 years, I hardly talk with anybody. I just focus on my studies. So that when Facebook comes around, and at the same time, I'm starting, my father passes away, and I began to join a religious congregation, and I had gotten to a certain point of proficiency within my spiritual practice, reading scriptures, understanding the teachings, but at some point it has to go just beyond just knowing it and then practicing, and not just practicing, but being in the world, interacting with others, being tempted, being challenged, being recognized, and continuing with the integrity of those teachings. So I'd studied, I learned, but it was time for me to like engage with the world with that knowledge, to share it, and particularly with cats that were just very disagreeable. So with that, I joined a congregation, and that was my calling. I won't get into details about that, but I joined a congregation, and then I also I started becoming increasingly social. And then this is also when Facebook emerges. I was actually at an interfaith conference when I was introduced to Facebook, because I heard a little bit about it before. Wasn't convinced about it, like, whatever. But when I was at the conference, I was like, okay, well, I'll try that out. So, wow, this is long side note, but so I joined Facebook, and the thing about Facebook, particularly at that time, was like it was like a reunion. Like I caught up with cats that I knew from law school. I'm like, oh, it's nice to see you again. All right, nice. Cats that I knew from undergrad, from business school, from high school, from elementary school, preschool. It was an amazing thing, particularly again in that period when society was just very malaise and just like fearful, but also just like all this antagonism towards each other. I personally catching hell in that experience, feeling again abandoned, ostracized, outcast, and additionally, so after half a decade of that experience, the opportunity for like reconnecting with people, even just on the internet and sending messages, whatever else, it was like it was almost, to be honest, like lightweight miraculous, because at that point I had like chalked it up like never gonna see people again, never gonna talk to people again, and that was part of the personal malaise that I experienced. So when Facebook comes around, connect with people, this is nice, and so eventually it becomes it becomes apparent that okay, yeah, we're connected, but you know what, we've kind of gone on different paths, and we know we have these stories from back in the day, but like they're married, they have children now. Those things from back in the day, not necessarily the most prevalent, prioritized kind of considerations at this moment. And for me, like, yeah, I'm pretty much the same person, but I'm increasingly knowledgeable. So just very different, and it becomes apparent, like, yeah, probably not going to be like best buddies and everything else like that through this. So it takes it. I go off Facebook for a while, like many people talk about, and that was again about a decade ago. And during that same period, I went off of YouTube as well. I closed out my YouTube account. I changed my name too, because of the emancipation from the legacy of enslavement. My family name is that I'm born with is a part of that experience, and so I changed my name to actually a family name that is comparatively free from that experience and that legacy of enslavement. And so in doing that, I changed my social media accounts and stuff accordingly, and that was about a decade ago. So that was when I started the YouTube channel with the full name that I carry. So in that decade and in the 15 years, I share thousands of videos, literally thousands. I haven't counted all of them, but I've just seen the listings. Literally thousands, 3,000 to 4,000 videos, and 3,000 to 4,000 videos at least, with an average of over half an hour. Some of the videos are just a couple minutes. Many of the videos are over an hour. Some of the videos are 2, 3, 4, 5 hours, single hours. So literally, if it was a person's full-time job for an entire year, still would be precluded from seeing everything that I posted in the past decade. A lot about myself. All cringe, TMI, boring, what is this, all types of stuff. Maybe beautiful, miraculous insights and knowledge and wisdom, entertaining stories. I worry less about the editing of it. I just share what I'm able to share with whomever may be responsive to it. So that's over the past decade, for better or worse. At some point, I actually, again, leave social media. I went on Facebook, or I returned to Facebook momentarily, and then, like, again, about 5 years ago, there's just a lot of hysteria about national elections in the United States. I'm not a U.S. citizen. I relinquished that citizenry over a decade ago. I'm not even human. That's not the story. So I had little interest in politics and little patience to hear about politics, and particularly to be told what to do and told who I am for not doing what I'm told to do, voting or whatever else. So particularly from loved ones, particularly from people who are very close to me. And so I didn't care either way about this. I know it's a facade. I know how the system works significantly. So I'm not going to even pretend to like play that game. And so it was just extremely frustrating. And so I just said, whoop, hot, gone. Left Facebook, left YouTube for a while as well, but YouTube is a different kind of phenomenon, and that's where I'm getting to with this whole thing. How are we at this point? 20 minutes. That's not too bad comparatively. So I stayed with YouTube, and that was like again over 5 years ago, and I stayed with YouTube, and I continue doing stuff on YouTube, sharing these joints, still having that, experiencing that vibe of like grassroots and or like call it tree roots. How about that? Or just like garden roots, but just like authentic communication, sharing experience, and then connecting with other brethren who are doing it. The challenge though is that at this point, after a decade and a half, and particularly in the past few years, it becomes very difficult to have that type of experience of genuine communication and hear genuine, authentic experiences and communication from others. There's just so much interference, so much static and messaging and sabotage, intentional and unintentional, or indifferent, within the communication between people on the platform. The monetization, commercialization, algorithms, even just what cats are like, grassroots cats are doing. One thing that's disheartening is just to see like when a new thing comes about and then people are like on it and trying to like do something that's for benevolent and everything. Okay, cool. But then once it becomes like popular, then like people begin to imitate the big machinery that people tend to admonish. So instead of like 3 networks having commercials and telling people buy this, buy this, buy that, do this, do that, now on YouTube it's like individuals being like small aspiring ambitious corporations doing their content and then also selling stuff as well. And so that's and then even like designing content, even designing like personal narratives to the point of selling something at the end. And so for corporations to do that in a slick kind of impersonal style, that's one thing. We get accustomed to that, so we know how to like elude that. But when it's like cats who are just ordinary people who are doing it, man, it's frustrating. So, and then in addition to that, then all the pop-up stuff that just breaks concentration, and it conditions, it socializes and conditions people to have their attention interrupted. To be watching something in the middle of that, shoot here, buy this, buy this, buy this, buy this. It's not even, and actually often it's not even buy that, because people know the corporations and cats are going to pay attention to that. But it's just like planting a seed of like disease, fear, anger, and that's it, because that's all the people know. They're going to have attention, other people's attention, so they just plant that seed of dissonance, and then through other means, whether it's a banner that's there afterwards or whatever. Here's the solution. Here's the solution. That's continuous. So it's all these methodologies of getting in people's heads. So all that being said, is disheartening, and ultimately that service that YouTube provides 15 years ago and a decade ago of facilitating communication, genuine communication, is significantly reduced, and now it's considerably effectively abrogated, because now I'm informed that YouTube maintains the prerogative of not monetizing, but posting advertisements on non-monetized sites. So even when a person or a company or organization has a YouTube channel and is sharing content and is not trying to make money off of it, is not opening it up to ads or anything else, YouTube, from what I am informed at this point, maintains the decision, or maintains the prerogative of itself putting ads on there, so that the audience, when viewing something, may be interrupted, their attention may be distracted or whatever, just by the decision of YouTube. That's basically the camel on the straw's back. And so with that, it's like that thought of like all the things that I've shared, hundreds, thousands of hours of stuff. Obviously, there's little expectation of somebody seeing all of it, or even like a large percentage of it, but it being available as an archive, and additionally. But I thought of it like being susceptible to that kind of commercialization, and that susceptibility of being attached to somebody else's, like whatever they want to sell, and being utilized for that. That's unduly disagreeable, for lack of a better word. We ain't having that. How about that? It's no haps. That's how we talk about. So for that reason, I done deleted pretty much all the content that I have on YouTube. Tough, yo. A decade and a half of stuff, thousands of hours. I share my heart and soul, my mind, all that on this joint. I have maybe like 22 subscribers. Probably, I can't say fewer views than posts that I put up, but it's not a matter of like being famous, whatever. It's like sharing it for the benefit that provides people. So tough, but also cathartic. And at this moment, like I was, and this is over a number of channels as well. I have the Peter Frank Womack Johansson OCC channel. There's the Asana Ashram channel. There's the Maven. There's the Mixed and Plural channel. There's the Votive Co-op channel. There's the Mavenist on the Daily channel. And so on each of these channels, there's like at least 100 videos each, or at least there was. And at this moment, I've been when I went on to Mavenist on the Dailies, this particular channel, each one had like a specific purpose. Mavenist on the Daily, I established a few years ago, and basically the premise of it was the understanding that people probably have difficulty perceiving that a man like myself genuinely lives and believes, or believes and lives in the way that I do. Kumbaya, with all the representing and at peace with the different traditions of the earth on a daily basis. Because a lot of cats can talk about that philosophy of Kumbaya, but lifestyle of Kumbaya. So maybe this on the daily was basically just an introduction of my lifestyle. Prayers and meditation that I do on a daily basis, the meals that I have, in addition, I share commentary and stuff like that. I was just at this moment, as I was recording this joint, deleting the videos on there because it's been like years since I've been onto that video. It was a couple of years ago, but like for maybe 2 months, maybe something like that, like every day. I think probably like Sunday through Friday, Soleil Day through Friday. At least 3 times a day, I would be recording what I was doing throughout the day. And so, again, that was about 5 years ago, and after that, that was it. I completed that kind of project or whatever, and I continued posting stuff on my regular channels. So when I was looking at like closing up stuff, I look on this one and like, oh, there's 900 videos on there. So that's what I was doing at this point. I tried to save all these joints. I tried to like download them back and everything else, and that takes so long. I got a hard drive for that, but even then, like it was just so long, and it becomes the word for ineffective, the anti-effective. It becomes counter-effective to just go through that process, because again, the decision of YouTube of putting ads on non-monetized sites was like, again, the thing that just like make it stop. But even before that, like for the past few months particularly, I have difficulty like staying away from YouTube. And it's not just a matter of posting stuff, but then there's an emotional attachment, there's a psychological attachment, one could even say a spiritual attachment to this device, and to the energy and the cipher that's facilitated through YouTube specifically, and the internet in general. And so through the years, I have abstained from feeling like that kind of like addiction. And it's not even an addiction per se, but it is a harmful attachment. And I try to find ways of like disciplining and this and the other, but I'm recognizing as long as I continue going through there and like putting stuff on there, there's a coinciding obligation and gravity to go on there and observe. And when I do that, again, it's difficult to find things that actually I find like valuable. There's just a lot of like fluff, and I stay away from that categorically and vehemently as much as I can. And one of the things I look for in YouTube specifically is like listening to people from different cultures, different communities who share different experience, and getting news from that, getting like what's life like, and not just like current events or whatever, but what's like life like there, what's going on over there. historically, but today, and then and vibing accordingly. But even now, like even with that, it's difficult to find because all the algorithms are increasingly sophisticated and guide people towards like certain things. It becomes very difficult to find things that people are looking for specifically and directly, and it's a lot. And then all the suggestions are like things that are not healthy, and not like even important, to be honest, at least in my estimation, for myself. And so, but at the same time, feeling the draw of like, when getting fatigued or whatever, not having like the patience or the concentration to like search something up specifically and find it, and instead just scrolling down and saying, okay, what's next? What can I don't want to say pacify me or whatever, but just like, what's the next? Because at some point, it's like I don't even have an interest in what I'm watching. It's just I'm watching something to like. It's not even a matter of entertainment or satisfying. It's like fulfilling whatever obligation I have of viewing because I posted something to be viewed. Something like that. Or also I provide a service of attention, inside guidance, in addition. So I can say, let me tell it or whatever, but that's actual. I'm significantly trained and experienced in that field of providing consultation. So there's that call for the services accordingly. Haha. Nice introduction. Well, this is a lot with what I shared on my channels. So again, at some point it was just like time to stop this journey. So that's what I do. That's what I just did. All the videos, in my estimation, are done deleted. All the channels are done deleted. My personal channel done deleted. I'm keeping 2 channels on here. One is Asona Ashram, and the other is Mixed and Plural. This is like the window, the corridor content, the post, where I'm giving the summary of what is previously posted on the other channels, and where things go from here. So the endeavor, the vision, the prospect, the path of multiculturalism, of reconciliation, of pluralism continues. And that's where the concentration is. The intentionality, God willing, continuing through this point, is establishing an online platform for communication between brethren who are mixed heritage, and who champion the experience of pluralism, the different cultures, languages, experiences of the earth, identify and claim allegiance with the earth, having a platform to talk about this. There are additional endeavors that we are cultivating, a radio station that streams music, and with the guidance of live instrumentation, old stories, new visions. Live instrumentations being emphasizing of live music and without words, without lyrics, so that anybody from any religion, any language can vibe with it genuinely, equally. So that's the first joint. That's the one parameter. The second parameter is old stories. So when we do share stories, when we cultivate coinciding endeavors where we tell stories, it's our old stories that strengthen our roots and our knowledge of self and our respect for each other. That's the second parameter, old stories. So it's not, we're getting beyond the identity politics. We're getting beyond the me, I want, suffer, get beyond all that. We're getting to our roots, because that's what strengthens us and that's what perseveres beyond all the persecution of today. Old stories. And then the third one is new vision. So today is relevant. The youth have tremendous gifts to share and to bring to the table. And understanding and that is needed by our elders, and additionally, and so we share that through illustrations, through the arts. Again, that can be appreciated and absorbed by anyone from any tradition, any language. And so that's what we emphasize through the New Visions, is that experience of life in this generation, with a immediacy concerning the future, and with a respect and a deference towards the past, towards the elders, towards our ancestors, and additionally. So that's what we're focusing on, continuing on with this joint. I am retired from spiritual diplomacy. For the past 20 years, that's what I do. Spiritual diplomacy, build cooperation, understanding between people, between communities, between ethnic and religious communities. I do a lot of reaching out. I go on a lot of goose chases. But I've also found many geese that lay golden eggs. These are golden eggs that scare away the pirates and make the grass go greener. So after doing that for 20 years, I'm retired, and I'm focusing on marriage, family, and spiritual teaching. That's where my focus is. That's where my priorities are. That's what's up. So that's what I continue to do. And that's how I continue to build and share. There's always I always have that responsibility of responding to the concerns of our community, earth and locally. Particular emphasis concerning Native brethren, particularly with land that is occupied by settlers, and also towards my experience of being mixed, and additionally. So that's where things stand, and that's where things build from this moment. In my spiritual teaching, I actually just complete a collection of materials for a 5-week course that I offer to brethren, and additional guidance I provide for anybody from any tradition, whatever, is geared towards strengthening and nurturing brethren to become increasingly knowledgeable, disciplined, and loving of self, to connect with one's ancestors, one's beliefs, one's purpose, and to proceed with that knowledge, discipline, and love. So that's how my spiritual teaching, outside of my practice, or outside of my immediate practice, because teaching is intrinsic within any of our endeavors and practices, but that's how my spiritual teaching with the general community is guided. One of these things, one of the components of the basic spiel that I share with brethren, is the cultivation of a mantra, a personal mantra, and there's a methodology for this in addition, but as a way of communicating or expressing or sharing the significance of a mantra, I share a story. And it's a collection of stories, and it's just going to be a very brief rendering of the stories. Many years ago, centuries ago, over 1,000 years ago, there is a man, a holy man, who is referred to as the peacemaker. And he emerges during a period of extreme, violent civil warfare amongst brethren of this land where I sit today. And long story short, eventually, as he's able to encourage tribes to put down their differences and cooperate with each other, there was still the necessity of reconciling with the head Naka, the powerful cat that nobody could touch. And the only way that the great peacemaker and his entourage, his crew, could approach the head Naka is through voicing a song of peace and tranquility, even to just get near the head Naka, and not make a mistake in voicing that song. And through that process, being able to reach the head knocker and talk with the head knocker and heal the head knocker to genuinely, thoroughly, comprehensively, sustainably establish the law of the great peace for reconciliation amongst all the tribes. A song. So that's what the great peacemaker does. He is provided with a song, and he practices. He shares that song with the others, and they recite that song. They voice that song all the way up to the head knocker. They get there. The great peacemaker takes on the weight, and then he approaches the head knocker, and he attends to the head knocker, provides the healing, and the peace is established. It's facilitated through a song. In a similar way, there's another story. That story is actually, I'm not going to say the name of the great peacemaker because it's a sacred name and we have to be mindful of how we say it. But I'll say it comes from the Haudenosaunee, and it is the story of the settler name for the tribe or for the federation is called Iroquois or Iroquois, and the establishment of the Great Peace, or the law of the Great Peace, is referred to as the Gayanashagowa. So that is the honoring of our ancestry in that respect. There is another story of another song coming from the land of the Desi, India, specifically the Buddha. And it is shared within the Digha Nikaya, the long discourses of the Buddha, specifically within the Attanatiya. I might be flummoxing that somewhat, but basically it's the 32nd sutta, if I recall correctly, of the Digha Nikaya. In this sutta, there is a celestial being, not a deity, a celestial being, who approaches the Buddha and explains to the Buddha that there are yakas. Yakas are nasty critters, very powerful nasty critters. And they said, the celestial being says to the Buddha, there are yakas who are cool with the Buddha, and there are yakas that don't like him too much. And the Buddha says, well, that's because they're not righteous, and we are. And so the celestial being says, okay, fair enough. But here's the thing: when your brethren, your monks and your nuns are walking solitarily in the forest doing the meditation and being away from society, additionally, you have to be careful about the yakas. And so in order to have some kind of safety, some refuge, I'm going to share with you this song. And this is going to establish a certain amount of tranquility, but also protection amidst the inclinations or declinations of the yakas. And so the celestial being, we can call it angel, shares this song with the Buddha. And the Buddha learns it and shares it with the Sangha, the community of monks and nuns and lay people. So again, the significance of the song. Now one other story. Yaakov Avinu. Long story, again short. Yaakov Avinu is living in the land of his far and is experiencing deprivation. There's famine in the land. There's a drought, shortage of food. And he has 11 sons. One son has been long lost. So he has 11 sons, 11 sons. And amidst the deprivation, amidst the drought, he hears about food being available in a nearby land, Mitzrayim, Egypt. And so he sends his sons to get some food. And there's a back and forth, and eventually his sons tell him about this guy who's running things in Mitzrayim, but he's somewhat of an ornery fella. And Yaakov has an inclination that it may be actually his long lost son. So what Yaakov Avinu does is he sends his sons back to Mitzrayim to get additional food because it's still short. And when he sends his sons, he sends them with the favorites of the land of his fathers, with the consideration, with the hint, with the possibility, with the remote actuality that chief in Mitzrayim is actually his long lost son. And those delicacies, those dainties of the land, the food, the fruits of the land, Yaakov Avinu sends to the chief in Mitzrayim, his prospective long lost son, Yosef Avinu, who it actually is. He sends it to him with the aspiration that it will invoke the nostalgia, the memory, the remembrance of his homeland, Yosef Avinu, that is. And so that is the purpose of sending the delicacies. He sends those things that are unique and special from the homeland to the chief in Mitzrayim as a way of communicating in that holy way reconciliation and reunion. And so that is what happens. So all of that being said, we have so many songs and so many stories within our heritage of earth to share with each other, to learn about each other, with each other, from each other. Those are some of the stories, those are some of the songs. Here is a continuing joint. It is a mantra, and it is a mantra that includes a number of words, principles from a number of different languages. Each word is a principle from a different tradition, a different language. But it is shared by all of our traditions and all of our languages in one way or another, to some degree, some intensity, some prioritization or another. And it's through these principles that we have additional, increased, proficient, substantial, formidable standing within the earth, particularly as mixed brethren. Our credibility, our authority is established through our ethics and through the reconciliation that we facilitate on this earth, regardless of what our profession, what our occupation is. That is our nature. That is our calling. That is our purpose. That is our gift. So this is a mantra that I share accordingly. It is 11 words. And I'm just going to share it. Here it is. Ahimsa Ubuntu Veritas Haya Shu Makohuga Samadhi Shema Shubono Narab. Now, for many people, the vast 99.9% of people are on the earth. That means very little. It's just gobbledygook. However, any one of those words, each one of these words, in a certain place on this earth, is extremely paramount. Opens doors. Shares bread and water. So, it is a mantra. It is a story. It is a scripture. It is an academy. It is a visa, a passport. But it requires study and practice for it to be effective. And that's just one mantra. With that communicated, again, we continue on. As I mentioned, with mixed and plural, the intention continuing, God willing, we establish an online platform for communication, regularly streaming music at the least at the beginning, particularly specifically from Mondays through Thursdays, avoiding Friday, Saturday, and Sunday because these are respective holy days, and we want to abstain from causing undue offense. And just a matter of being respectful and recognizing this is part of the protocols of Earth culture. So Sunday midnight, technically Monday, to Thursday midnight, technically Friday, there is the streaming of our joint. Now that's in the works. That's what we're aiming for. and building community amidst this with an online platform communication. Additionally, we welcome recommendations, we welcome suggestions, we welcome volunteer support hours, and additionally, it's a cooperative effort. I'm one dude. I have many communications, many conversations continuing with many different brethren, many of whom don't even get along with each other too tough. And that's part of the challenge, and that's part of the necessity of having a platform where we can have this communication in an open way. Recognizing that this internet, this interweb joint, it's the open seas, it's the wild, wild west. And so there's a lot of things that are awesome that are done here, but we also know, pirates is running these ships. And so we have to be mindful of that, and particularly in establishing trustworthy, reliable, constant methodologies of communication, because communication is essential when building cooperation. Community is so foundational in that, particularly when brethren have different languages. So that's part of it. That's a significant part of it. The other part of it, to be honest, is land. Having stable arrangements and relationship with the places we actually live in, like right where I'm sitting right at this moment. So that, again, when building community, and additionally, all this solidarity building, all these marches and everything else, it's not doing nothing. It don't do nothing. Seriously, it doesn't do anything. If it's that serious, if cats are willing to go to the street, just build where you're at. Talk with the people that you live around, and build whatever you're looking for right there, because that's what it is. Anyways, I'm getting on a little bit of a spiel now, so I'm gonna leave it at that. So it's under an hour. That's decent. So this is like pretty much like the sayonara joint. I do the mixed and plural hour joints, but that might be going on hiatus at this point, because again, focusing on the establishment of the online form, and ain't nobody picked up on that on the mixed hour, and it's a matter of me deciding what's the most prudent utilization of my time, energy, materiality, what I solicit other people to invest within as well. So it's on this infrastructure and online communication that is estimated to be increasingly conducive to what people's comfort and expectations and interests and priorities are. So again, these wild goose chases, we're wrapping up, and we're focusing on the greener grass on the other side, on this side too, because that's what the nature is. It's all one side. That being said, there it is. Namaste, assalamu alaikum, shalom, adios, mir, te chakaris, esimpin asmudbo, zaijen, esimpe na asamuje, kira ufred, and love and peace, happiness, liberation.